Hey guys, Drak here. Uh, Usually this is one of those things where you have both Drak and Shadow doing a vlog. But the Shadow Blazer decided to wuss out on this movie. And so I would actually like to put out an open request to the viewers of this video. Just leave a comment below why the Shadow Blazer wasn't willing to see this movie. He's willing to go see other things, but anything DreamWorks, oh my goodness, it's evil, it's bad. And just I want to get a response from him. So, but this year, if people remember last year, we had one vlog that did not involve him, and that was Terminator Genesis. So he kind of wussed out of that movie too, and I did encourage people to leave a comment on it. So I'm going to do that again. But I'm just going to warn people in advance. There are a lot of movies this year, and a good portion of them Alex doesn't want to see. So leave a comment below. You know, I just like to point out for the record, and I love my partner, the Shadow Blazer. Don't get me wrong, but well, I sat through K-On! Did I like it? Did I hate it? It was okay, but I did it. That shows that I'm willing to go and do things that I don't necessarily want to do. And I love the fact that the Shadow Blazer, his only reason for not seeing this is it was a DreamWorks film. Frick does that mean? Anyway, I didn't want to make this just picking on the Shadow Blazer. But welcome everybody to this Drak and Shadow vlog, although appropriately it's a Drak vlog, of Kung Fu Panda 3. So I'm a big animation nut, and I don't really give a crap which company does what, because here's the thing. If I were to completely rule out Pixar, well, there are some good directors within Pixar, so I wouldn't have seen things like The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Finding Nemo, I personally appreciate. Inside Out, I would have ruled out completely. And so at that point, I'm willing to see from any company as long as it's good. And a couple of years ago, I got my hands on the first Kung Fu Panda. I had not seen that in the films, and here's another complaint that the Shadow Blazer had, was that Jack Black is in it. Look, I get that. I get that a lot of people don't like Jack Black. Think that he is subpar or whatnot. But here's the thing. I normally would agree with you, but occasionally he does have roles where he is a diamond in the rough, and he does come out and it works. The first one that comes to my mind, aside from Kung Fu Panda, because I do like his performance in it, is, well, Brutal Legend, the Double Fine game. That is really good, and it works to all of Jack Black's strengths. So at that point, I'm not willing to just fault a movie because a singular actor is in it. And yes, before the Shadow Blazer makes a comment about I won't go see a Leo DiCaprio film, I have seen Leo DiCaprio films. That has happened. I will see things even if it's got an actor that I don't like. So, that being said, I saw the first Kung Fu Panda, really, really enjoyed it. It's, for those who have never seen it before, I guess I should explain this first. This is going to be a little bit of rambling, people, because I don't have the Shadow Blazer to kind of temper me. So first of all, if you are brand spanking new to the Drak and Shadow vlogs, first of all, where the heck are you? And second of all, welcome. Where the heck have you been? So this is where we actually will sit down and talk about a movie that has come out. Occasionally we'll do vlogs on other events like Sonic Boom, things like that. Sorry, I need to wet my throat. So, but usually what we will do with these vlogs is, and I'm going to warn you in advance, it is going to be spoiler heavy. I'm going to keep it as tempered as I can, because I didn't spoil too much of Genesis, I don't think. Yeah, I didn't go like plot point by plot point. I really didn't. And I'm going to keep this kind of quiet too, but there still will be spoilers ahead. So if you don't want to be spoiled for Kung Fu Panda 3, if you press the button, I promise I'll wait. There you go. Now you have a good pausing point. So with that said, there will be spoilers, and I have no problem saying that. Second of all, with Kung Fu Panda, I really appreciated it because to those who have never seen a Kung Fu Panda film, they are pretty much walking knockoffs of martial arts films. And being a kid of the 80s, I had to have seen at least a few, you know? I've seen some of the Jackie Chan films. I've seen mostly a lot of my background comes from anime, and this one does kind of diss martial arts anime to quite a bit. So I latched onto this. Also, the all-star cast, like for as much as you want to criticize Jack Black in his performance of this, Dustin Hoffman has always been worthwhile to come to these movies as Master Shifu. I also, and I can't even believe I'm saying this because I am not a fan of Angelina Jolie in the slightest, but I do like her when she voices Tigress. I like what she's done with that character. And on top of that, you can get Alex Cross, you get Lucy Liu, Jackie Chan, for crying out loud, is in these films. He knows what it is, and he's totally unrepentant about it. And he gets a minor role. That's the thing. That makes me laugh the most. He gets a fairly minor role, and he's the martial arts film nut. You know, he's been in them all. Rumble in the, you know, I could list off Jackie Chan movies. I'm not going to, because that would detract from things. And then occasionally we'll bring in a really good actor to be the villain. I can't remember who the first one was, but like off the top of my head. But like they brought in Gary Oldman for the second film. And that's awesome. This one was J.K. Simmons. If you don't know who J.K. Simmons is, he did Law and Order for the longest time. He was J.J. Jameson in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. Gamers know him from Portal 2 when he was Cave Johnson. So, again, another really great actor to put into this mix. And yeah, I'm still not thinking of the actor who played the first villain. It's just not coming to me. But like Michael Clark Duncan was in the first film. For crying out loud, James Hong is like a marker in these films. He plays Poe's dad and does a really, really great job. We are mortal folk. I mean, I've heard numerous people quote that. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So, I saw the first one and I had to go see the second just because of all the jokes that were being made. And it also is a really good story of, for lack of a better term, a geek rising to be more. So again, I wholeheartedly recommend the first two films if you have not seen them and you're an animation buff. I'm not saying you're going to see the greatest of animation. I'm saying you will see a good movie. A good plot, a good narrative, good shots from it, or at least good animated shots from it. So let's go ahead and get into the plot of Kung Fu Panda 3 before I derail even further. So Kung Fu Panda 1 basically put us in meeting Po and getting to know that he is the chosen one, the Dragon Warrior, and how he rose above being just your average geek to being, you know, a Kung Fu master. So like the premise of Kung Fu Panda 1 was for him to learn how to do Kung Fu, which he had never taught, you know, he'd never been taught. The second film is where he becomes a Kung Fu master. That's the whole presence of the arc, as well as being able to tie up some of Poe's backstory and be able to tell a good story with it. And Kung Fu Panda 2 did have an Easter egg that led into this, which would be that we find out near the end that his father is actually alive. Little spoilers for Kung Fu Panda 2, but if you haven't seen it, I don't know what to tell you. Po finds out that he is the last panda, roughly, and we actually get to see a really heartfelt scene with his mother, his mother's last moments, where she hides him away in a beat cart and tries to lead the band that is killing all of the pandas away from there. And it ends with us meeting Poe's father, presumably, and saying, "My son is alive." And that's not how this film starts. This film starts in the spirit realm. So already I can tell you kind of the premise of the plot right then and there, where we had this progression of learning Kung Fu to mastering Kung Fu. This is going to be mastering all things spiritual. So we start up in the spirit world where we meet Master Oogway, the turtle, appropriately enough, who chose Po as the Dragon Warrior. And he meets up with his long-lost friend Kai, who appropriately nobody knows, because he was friends with Oogway. And anybody who's friends with Oogway is apparently a side character in a JRPG. You just aren't known. Unless you're Cloud. So, they fight, but ultimately we have this decision of, well, I can fight. It's been 500 years, Oogway. We've been battling in the spirit realm. I can finally beat you. And Oogway's like, yeah, sure, whatever. That's why I trained somebody specifically to be able to fight this battle. And obviously that piques Kai's interest, as he is. We find out that he's learned how to absorb the chi of another being, and so he's got this nice little chain of little jade statuettes. And he realizes, oh, okay, you trained another guy? I'm gonna go fight him. Like how every stinking Kung Fu Panda film starts up. Which is fine, because it's still entertaining. Then we cut to the Valley of Peace, where obviously Po is having the time of his life with the Fearsome Five, and he then gets a proverbial boulder dropped on him when Master Shifu says, well, this is my last class teaching you, because Po will be teaching! Bye! And that obviously freaks Po the heck out, and he doesn't understand Shifu's reasoning. Nobody really does. Even when Shifu tries to explain it, because he basically says, well, just as much as you go up in the ranks, I also ascend. And now he can work on the development of manipulating chi. And so that's kind of the lead up. This is kind of what they did with Kung Fu Panda 2, where Shifu had to learn to master this stuff, and then Po does it. So this is just a nice little lead up to say this is where this film is going to focus. So we have Po's first class, and it goes horribly. Absolutely horribly. Which things usually do with Po. And he gets to talk to Shifu. He gets, the usual I'm a master mumbo jumbo that he doesn't like to take in. So he goes back to his home in the Valley of Peace, where his father, a goose played by James Hong, immediately notices that he's there and he shouldn't be. And so he's like, okay, what's wrong? Because he's sitting there soaking in a tub, and he's like, I don't know if I want to teach anymore, and I don't get what Shifu is trying to tell me. And then all of a sudden, we hear a ruckus about how Po's dumpling eating record is going to be beaten, and this actually leads into the trailer scene that everybody's seen, or that everybody has seen by now, where we get to introduced to Po's father. I think his name is Li Shang, or Li Shan, played by Bryan Cranston. Wow, second movie with Bryan Cranston. I'm actually a little excited. So, we get to have that whole moment of, I lost my dad, I lost my son. Well, good luck to you in your quest. And then you find out that the trailer kind of cut off that, where they actually look over and go, oh, you're right, oh my gosh. And we get to have this really good heartfelt moment. However, James Hong's character is feeling rather jealous, because obviously he's raised Po for the most part. Not disregarding what Po's parents did, but he's been there for a long time. So he's obviously jealous, and we kind of have that little arc building up where they love being around each other and they like celebrating. Enough so that they actually go to the Hall of Heroes, and if people remember, the first movie kind of started there, and we actually get to see a couple of the relics there that Po broke. And it just so happens that in the spirit of fun, because obviously Po's dad is just like Po, they start messing around in the museum, where they get to meet the Fearless Five, and then they get the message that the Valley of Peace is in danger. And the Valley of Peace is in danger by walking jade statues, roughly, of previous masters. And this is where Kai comes into play. So now that Kai has absorbed Oogway, he can now go to the mortal world to find Po. But he already has all of these other Kung Fu masters in his sway, as jade statue zombies, or as Po likes to put it, zombies. And so we actually have an attack with them, and we find out that they're virtually indestructible, and nothing can really be done about it. So that obviously begs the question from all of them. How do we counteract this? In the meantime, we also get some scenes of Poe's father realizing what Poe does for a living and being absolutely horrified by it. Obviously, because he lost his wife. He doesn't want to lose his kid. I apologize if I'm a little sniffly here. So they go back to the Jade Palace to do some research on the matter and find out that Kai was training with Oogway. We actually find out that Oogway wasn't exactly the Kung Fu master we'd always known. At one point, he did want to show off his skill and he did want to lead an army. But then he gets mortally wounded and while they're trying to find a place for him to recover, Kai and him stumble across a valley of pandas. And the pandas have mastery of chi. They can actually heal Oogway. Which actually kind of inspires Oogway to learn this as the next step in his training. But Kai goes another route where he instead of giving of chi, which is what the pandas do, he is going to take it in. And that's where the Jade zombie or the zombies come into play, is that he's taking chi from others to enhance his own strength. And so at that point, the only person that can defeat him is a master of chi. Well, as we've seen earlier on, Shifu's not a master of chi. He's just barely learning. But Poe's dad steps in and says, I can teach you. Because obviously he's a panda. And obviously Poe's like, oh, awesome. I will go with you to where the pandas live and I will learn how to do this. And everybody agrees except for Poe's other dad. We're just going with James Hong. Except for James Hong, who is like, no, you can't take my son away from me. And instead decides to sneak onto the trip to go to the Panda Village. And at that point, we're introduced to the Panda Village and their way of life, which is, as you might expect, it is as lazy as Poe is, aside from, the Kung Fu aspect. So, you get to have a couple of jokes being made of, pandas don't use stairs, we use elevators. Pandas don't walk, they roll everywhere. And that whole culture is allowing for Poe to get absorbed into it, and he gets to learn kind of the life he lost. While he's doing that, though, Kai attacks the Jade Palace. Well, no, first of all, he's holed up somewhere, and Crane and Mantis are sent out to scout, and they come across 3 other masters of areas, and they're like, well, we traced them back to this area, where they all inevitably get captured. And then eventually we go to the Jade Palace being invaded by statues of Crane, of Mantis, and all of the other masters. And so we get to have that moment where the rest of the Fearsome Five and Master Shifu are all absorbed, and the Jade Palace is destroyed. So the one thing that you never thought you'd see in a Kung Fu Panda film came to fruition. The Jade Palace is destroyed. And I think the more horrifying aspect was actually seeing everybody but Tigress being absorbed into his chi to be Jade zombies. Tigress doesn't. She gets away, and she's basically the messenger to the Panda Village that, have you mastered chi yet? We really need this. And in the meantime, Poe has been undergoing training, but it's just basically training to be a panda, to roll around everywhere, to be lazy, to eat endlessly, and all of that. It's to live a good life. And Tigress comes, warns him that Kai is now coming for him, now that the Jade Palace is destroyed, and Poe immediately goes to his dad and goes, no, wait, we gotta up this training. I've got to learn how to do this now. And then we find out, and this is a typical trope of DreamWorks, I know, but sometimes it's done well and sometimes it isn't. This is one of those times where it is done well. We find out Poe's dad lied. The art of being able to use chi has since long been lost to the pandas. Nobody really knows how to use it. And on top of that, the reason that Poe's dad made that lie was to get Poe to come with him. Obviously, he was horrified by what Poe does for a living, and he wanted to save him from that. He wanted him to live a good life. So obviously that's a problem, and Poe is not happy about being lied to. So he undergoes training and we have kind of an abrupt separation of him and his dad. In the meantime, though, James Hong kind of goes in and comforts his dad and says, and comforts Bryan Cranston and says it's going to be okay, because at this point in his life, Po needs both dads. Tigress then steps in on Po's training and is like, none of this is going to work. You need to be a master of Chi. We need to figure out how to do that, and there's no way to be able to do it. So they come up with another alternative. Well, if Kai is using an army, then we'll make an army. So all of the pandas then volunteer and say, teach us how to fight. And this kind of goes into the whole Kung Fu teaching again, is that he now has to teach this village of pandas how to use their abilities to be able to fight off a Jade statue horde. And so we have a nice little montage there, and finally Kai makes his way to the village. Big fight ensues. The Jade statues are kind of held back by the pandas, but all of this has been to one purpose, is we're calling back to the first film where he's going to do the whooshy finger hold to kill off Kai. So we've held that off, and now we get to have this final fight between him and Po, between Kai and Po, and he gets the whooshy finger hold, and does it, and nothing happens. Oh, but then we have to explain that plot device, because Kai basically says, oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that only works on mortals. I'm from the spirit realm, so it's not going to work on me. And then he basically proceeds to kick the living crap out of Po. Enough so that he falls back to where the pandas were, and the villain gets to have his little taunting moment, when I kill you, I'm going to absorb all these others. And Po realizes there is no way to beat him in this realm. So at that point, he comes to this realization by saying, oh, the whooshy finger hold doesn't work on spirit realm people, but it works on mortals. So he decides, okay, we're going to go back to the spirit realm, and I'm going to use the whooshy finger hold on myself to go to the spirit realm with you. And so they have their battle there, but in the meantime, there's this little convenient yin-yang of cherry blossoms that is there, and that's basically Rangers observe the viewing globe, where the village gets to watch this battle go into fruition. And I'm gonna sum up the battle. I'm not gonna go too much into detail, but Po realizes his true ancient powers by unleashing the heart of the cards. Actually, because the pandas want to be able to help him, so they actually latently begin to discover the power of Chi again, and they fuel him with Chi, enough so that he now is super Dragon Warrior mode, and he takes on Kai. So at that point, Kai has been defeated, and I'm not going to go into the details of that. Then he gets to finally have a little moment with Oogway, and gets to realize, well, why Oogway chose him as the Dragon Warrior, because a lot of people, that's like the biggest question of the series. Why was he chosen? And Oogway actually explains, he saw this future. He saw this was going to happen. So at that point, there's your Dragon Warrior. And he then comes back from the spirit realm. He finds a way through Kung Fu to be able to come back from the spirit realm and meet up with everybody. And pisses off Shifu because he learns how to master Chi before Shifu did. But then we get to have this nice little heartfelt moment that brings the whole series into full circle. Can you teach me? And it basically ends with Po teaching everybody how to do Kung Fu. And that, I actually kind of hope this wraps up the series. Because this is a great way to end it. And I don't see this as being a bad ending for the series. Like, if they did a Kung Fu Panda 4, I might go see it, but, like, I'm worried that it would be bad. Because this was a nice little wrap-up to everything that came before this. We get to see this journey of a pudgy geek learning how to be a Kung Fu, or learning how to do Kung Fu, then becoming a master and holding off an entire army. He becomes that epic legend that he's always read about, and then he becomes even more powerful by mastering spirituality, roughly. So that's pretty much the plot of Kung Fu Panda 3. Likes and dislikes. I liked a lot of the shots. Like, each one has had a particular theme where, you know, the first one was story-driven. The second one, a lot of visuals helped with the story, where things got dark and cold, and it felt as if there was no hope. This one actually uses a lot of lighting to be able to, like, lighting of a sunrise, to be able to show that this is not just the end. This is also the beginning. This is, you know, we've hit that low point, but now we can go higher than this. And I did like that whole concept. I love the intro to the spirit world was dark and green to kind of symbolize Kai. And then at the end, it was golden to symbolize both Po and Oogway. So I love both of these. I love the premise of it. The thing that I didn't like so much was, well, I didn't like the whole Jade zombie thing. That seemed kind of dumb in a way, because you didn't really, they didn't really do anything with it. You know, it's not like we had like one or two moments where like Monkey's trying to tell Mantis who he is, but we didn't like have this moment where Po was fighting off against Shifu and telling him who he was. And so I felt that was kind of wasted. It actually would have been a better idea, because, I mean, up until this point, we've had one-on-one bouts. The first one was a one-on-one bout. The second one was a one-on-one bout. But since the Gary Oldman character was obsessed with the machines, his machines got involved. But that made sense. This one, it just felt like, oh, I have an army, and not really all that well explained. And so when he actually was fully powered up and he was taking their strength, it was cooler than that. So I'm just saying, I don't think that the Jade statues were utilized the best way that they could have been. Instead of, it should have just been Kai against Po. Those are really my likes and my dislikes. I really do think this is a good, solid ending to this series. There's a Kung Fu Panda 4. I don't know what they're going to do with it. But they'll milk the franchise for all it's worth. If I were to give this thing a final score of it, I would probably give it a solid 8 out of 10. It was a solid B. And the reason I say that is because a couple of the moments were dragged out for the sake, at least in my opinion, for the sake of padding. And I don't think it needed to be dragged out. We had a lot of heartfelt moments, and those were the things that can pad out a story really, really well. We didn't need to have the moment where he's meeting up with every single panda in the village, and in essence, he doesn't. He meets up with only a few that are kind of the target characters, and that's it. There was also, again, a lot of used up space with Kai, where like he enters the mortal realm and he ends up on a farm, and so the only real reason that needed to exist was to say, I'm in the mortal realm. But he should have already known that. Like as soon as he walked on there, he should have been like, I'm in the mortal realm. Obviously, that's where I traveled. So, and again, the Jade statues I thought was a good idea on paper, but it wasn't utilized to the best of its ability. So, you know, instead of, like, you could have had a really great moment where, because they actually do bring out a Jade version of Shifu, and you could have had Po fight it. And at that point, that would have been like a really big culmination of everything that's happened, is Po versus Shifu happened in the first film because Shifu didn't want to teach him. But at the same time, the second film put him in a master's role. And so at that point, he respects Po and is willing to help him learn more. This one would have been, because especially with the worship that Po has for Shifu, this would have been a scary concept, and nothing was really done with it. That's why I'm saying the Jade statues felt kind of not used properly. I also think the Tigress should have been another Jade zombie. If not, I mean, I get that you had to have a messenger warn Po, but at the same time, you could have had her be converted, like right then and there. Especially since, well, Po still has kind of that crush with Tigress. So that would have actually been a really great moment for him to realize, yeah, in order to save the rest, I have to go to the spirit realm to fight this guy off. But I'm going to give this thing a solid 8. I think it is especially for Kung Fu Panda fans, you will not be disappointed. Animation fans, I think you're going to get something out. I think you're going to at least get something out of it. The animation wasn't horrible, and I did actually like that they maintained to the style, but they added upon it with all the sunrise kind of use of lighting. I did like that, but to somebody who's brand spanking new, I would say you need to watch the first two films for the true meaning and development of this character to make sense. So with that said, the other rating that we actually do give on these shows is, if you had to pay a certain amount of money, or had to recommend somebody paying a certain amount of money, how much would you recommend? For this one, obviously, it's a kid's film. I actually want to say the Kung Fu Panda is more of a family kind of film, but a lot of people go, no, it's kids. I disagree. I think it's family. And therefore, obviously, you're going to see it in matinee, and that's the cheapest way to be able to do it. But if you had to do this in primetime, I wouldn't be against it. I think it would be a good idea to at least give it a shot in primetime. There is 3D for it. I did not see it in 3D, and I don't know if I would. And here's the thing. I love CG, 3D with CG. I think it works really, really well. But not so much for the Kung Fu Panda series. I don't know how it would step out of the screen, so to speak. So this might be one of those few that I probably wouldn't recommend 3D for. I think primetime is fine enough, but I wouldn't recommend the whole $15 for a 3D seat. That's going to go ahead and do it for this vlog of Kung Fu Panda 3. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you've been spoiled, I'm sorry. And again, leave a comment below. The Shadow Blazer really needs to get into some of these. Like, this is one of those movies where I'm daring him right now to go see it. Because I get it. Occasionally DreamWorks drops bombs. But there are these diamonds in the rough in between. I would even dare say the first Shrek film is way better than most of the other Shrek films. Because of what it tried to do initially. How to Train Your Dragon, I think, is still a good series of movies. And this is another good one. And if you want to make the complaint, well, I'm not going to go see it because Jack Black's in it. Okay, well then don't complain to me that Leonardo DiCaprio's in a film and I'm not willing to see it, you know? It's one of those things. So, yeah, leave a comment below for the Shadow Blazer, as well as if you guys want to give me crap, then so be it. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it. So the next movie that we're going to be doing together, at least until the Shadow Blazer bails on me, is going to be Hail Caesar with George Clooney. So we're looking forward to this. This is going to be like the first comedy that we've done as a vlog. So here's hoping that it's worth our time. But in the meantime, I'm Drak, and I'll see you guys next time.